great to have you with us in the 8 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate. Tonight we're discussing an issue that we've repeatedly raised over the last year and a half since the pandemic hit us. And it is a matter of concern even now for all parents as schools begin to reopen in state after state. And starting this October, schools in many more states will be reopening, including the state of Maharashtra. But the parents are still concerned, confused. In Maharashtra, there is a lot of conversation of whether or not to send their children to school. How will it really work out? In several other states where it was only for the senior classes on alternate days in limited manner, the states are now considering opening schools for more classes. For example, Tamil Nadu in September actually opened classes, and immediately they saw some cases that took place, and that is where the conversation began. Similarly, in Odisha, where schools reopened, 3 schools reported COVID outbreak, even though the idea was to maintain distance. We found that students and teachers had tested positive. Over 100 children had tested positive. In Karnataka, wherever schools have opened, you'll actually see that despite staff and teachers being vaccinated, cases did come up. In many parts, in Punjab and Karnataka, schools had to be shut down once these cases came about, which is what is adding to the confusion of parents on what to do and what not to do. 1.5 years, children haven't gone to school. Now, many experts say we should reopen schools, we should send our children, not wait for vaccines. Now, is that something that we can convince the parents, allay their fears? Are there specific precautions that can actually be taken? That's the big debate, and that's what I want to talk to our panelists about. We're also opening up our phone lines, and we're going to be asking you this question. As a student, as a parent, as an academician, what is your view on whether it's safe enough or not? Is it safe for children to return to school? And if not, should the fear simply be that they may get COVID, or should there be also understanding that even if they do, children do have higher immunity and it won't be or may not be as fatal as it is in adults, and so that's a risk you may want to take when you consider the larger issue, which is education of your children. Lots of angles. We've got experts. We've also got medical experts who are joining us on this conversation. So let me say good evening to Dr. Chandrakant Leria, vaccine and public policy and health systems expert, who's actually for quite some time now been vocal about reopening schools. Anubha Shrivastava, Sahaya President for the India-wide Parents Association. Dr. Asmita Mahajan, consultant pediatrician at Fortis Cecil Raheja Hospital in Mumbai. Professor C.B. Sharma, educationist, professor at the School of Education at IGNOU, joins us this evening. Dr. Ram Singh, principal for DPS in Ranchi, also with us this evening. Great to have all of you here. Dr. Leria, let's start off with you, in an attempt to allay some of the concerns, because every time schools reopen in some state and there are some cases that emerge, again this debate triggers. I've had so many queries now in Maharashtra and Mumbai, from parents who are not able to decide what to do, especially in a city like Mumbai that has, for 1.5 years seen a high case load, relatively higher than rest of the country, and so there is a bigger concern here.
So, first thing we need to remember that we hear a lot of discourse about whether it's safe to open a school. But what we need to remember, and this is from a book in the medical science, so one of the quote I always remember is that the risk in human life starts the moment fetus is conceived in the womb of mother. If you are born, you have taken risk. So there is nothing in the life which is risk-free. What is important that we know what is the label of risk. So we need to remember that even when driving on the road has some risk, but all of us drive. Similarly, schools have some risk. There is nobody is saying that's a zero risk, but whether COVID-19 is resulting in increased risk or whether the risk of COVID-19 is greater than any other risk, that's the key question. And the answer is no. There is no additional risk of COVID-19 in children due to school opening. That's one thing. Schools are safe, and if we follow some appropriate precautions, which are 3, One is a vaccination of the school staff and family members. Second is a ventilation, and third is a mask. These are the add-on things. Children are already safe, and if we follow these, schools will be even safer. That's one part. Second thing which we need to remember is that as pandemic evolve and as diseases around us, we need to change our parameters. When the beginning of pandemic, we had no clarity that how much is the risk and what is going to happen. 18 months into pandemic, we have developed understanding that children may develop infection, but infection does not translate into severe disease in the children. And that's the key point. What we need to remember that at this stage of pandemic, infection alone is not the criteria. What happens with the infection, that is the criteria, and children are safe in that context. So putting everything together, the answer is that there is a risk in the life in all aspects. There is a risk in the school opening also, but that risk is very minimal and the benefits are all there. In the life, we always take some risk, and this is a risk which is lower than the risk we take in the life in going on a ride or in a driving a car and other aspects of life. So schools are safe, and COVID-19 is going to stay with us, and that's why we should open school. We cannot delay. And we know other things, that vaccination is not a prerequisite because children are at a low risk of moderate to severe disease. Vaccines prevent moderate to severe disease. So there is not that much benefit of vaccinations, all other things. And all of those are secondary, which evolve with the time. With the current evidence, schools can be opened safely, and that would be the right thing to be done.
Okay, schools can be opened safely. That would be the right thing to do at this point. Let me now actually also bring in Dr. Asmita Mahajan, because Dr. Mahajan, there is much debate that continues, your data versus my data, whether children are more prone or less prone from first wave, second wave, third wave. Do they have better immunity than adults or lesser immunity? What would your advice be to parents?
So, doctor, I would definitely say that, yes, like Dr. Laria said, children are more safe. Their disease is usually milder than what adults or elderly people get. Only, I would say, less than 1% may be suffering from complicated COVID-19 or its other complications of the disease. Having said that, however, throughout these waves, the first wave, second wave, third wave, we have seen that more or less the proportion of children affected has not really changed, nor has the severity of disease seen in children. It has been more or less same. It's just that the second wave itself was so much major in its numbers per se. That is why more children were seen to be affected during the second wave as compared to the first wave. Third wave, we are still not sure whether we are in that phase at all per se. And there have been preparations with respect to children also. If there is a third wave with majority of children getting affected, there have been preparations from local regulatory bodies as well as hospitals and doctors and private practitioners also, with training sessions and many more things happening. So there was a preparation happening, but as of now, I would say that since the case load is quite low, and fatality rate is also low, so the number of cases in children also have been under control, I would say.
Okay, let me bring in at this point Anubha Shrivastava. Anubha, of course, one thing to note, which Chandrakant Laria also said, was the fact that this is a new disease, it's a new infection and virus that we've only known for 1.5 years, and we're still discovering a lot about it. So a lot of our beliefs and theories and rules will change as we go along. But our parents now, finding some faith in the fact that yes, they can send their children without waiting for a vaccine.
Thank you, Tanvi, for having me here, and it's a very important discussion which Mirror now is doing. And as far as parents are concerned in India and also abroad also, not only in India, but in the other countries also, we are connected with parents. In India also, parents are concerned because they have seen that how in USA and in other countries, children are being now tested COVID positive. In Florida, if you will see, even in USA also, we have seen that the children are being sent to ICUs. If COVID has no major impact on children, as Dr. Laharia is saying, that it is safe, then why children are being sent to ICU? ICU, if they are sending children to ICU, it means it is not, children are not safe. Even in Bangalore, Yesterday or today, I got to know around 60 children were tested positive. Out of those 60 children, 2 children are symptomatic. They have been sent to hospital. Other rest 58 have been sent to quarantine centers. Why? Why the children are being sent to quarantine center? Are these doctors going to take responsibility if anything happens to our children? No. Everyone will say, even government, nobody is going to and willing to take responsibility, neither school nor doctors. All these doctors on this panel, on other panels also, there are divisions. Some doctors are saying, yes, it may have very bad impact on children. Very bad COVID, post-COVID complications may be there. So it's a new disease. Parents are not aware. Parents are Googling and they're also finding out what is happening in other countries. So we don't want to take risk. So even if the schools are reopened in many states, but you can see that parents are not sending their children to school. Because there is a fear in mind. There is no study as of now whether what will be the impact on children.
Yes.
अगर बच्चे जो हैं ICU में जा रहे हैं तन्वी जी तो इसका मतलब कि इसका impact हो रहा है बच्चों पे ये इंडिया में भी हो सकता है if it is happening in USA then it can happen in India also. So I don't know why these doctors have not read any such reports which is coming from other countries.
Well, I'll ask Dr. Leria that because he's actually in detail, you know, a lot of the experts and actually not just the two who are on our panel, Ms. Sai, a lot of the experts in the last 1 month have openly come out and said that between the two, between not sending them to school for any longer and or reopening schools, they would also reopen schools and that it's not such a big concern. Statistical analysis, Dr. Leria, does it show anything different in states where schools have reopened or nations where schools have reopened?
So I think what we need to remember that the mathematics and medical science are two totally different things. In mathematics, 2 plus 2 makes 4. But this is epidemiology, and epidemiology contexts matter a lot. And that is the difference in United States and India. The context in India is that India had a severe second wave, and India children have already developed infection, as we know through CO survey. The context in United States is that United States did not face Delta wave. Delta variant is now there, which is causing the wave there. That's one. Second thing, people often invoke the Florida and Texas and other cities. What they do not tell that in Florida, people are actively opposing mask wearing. The schools were open without mask and people were not following all those guidelines in the community and setting. So this is the difference of the setting. And we cannot keep invoking. We should always remember that context differs and context is very different in India. India has a high vaccination. India has a Delta variant which has gone. And scientifically, it is known that the same variant which caused a particular wave cannot cause a fresh wave in a setting. So Delta variant is unlikely to cause a fresh wave in India. So those are the differences. I can go on, so I'll stop here. The second part I want to answer that often it is repeated that, okay, after opening school, the cases in Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Bengaluru, and people cite the number of 60 or 30. But what they forget, the context is there, that whenever schools have been opened in those settings, Punjab, Uttarakhand, Himachal, Bengaluru, it results in increased testing in the children. And when testing is done, children are already infected. And once you test them, you find the infection. But what is important that everybody is saying that children are at the same rate of infection, but they do not develop severe disease. So identifying infection is not the point. Whether it has resulted in increased severe disease, that has not happened. So admission in Florida in ICU does not have any benefit. What would happen in children in India? And that's what we need to remember. So let's not simply keep invoking those points which are in different setting. In one part of the world or other part of the world, some infection would happen. We should be thinking what should be happening in India. And most important final point is, though people keep saying, oh, Florida cases are increasing, but those settings have not closed their school. But we keep invoking their points and say that keep our schools closed, while they are keeping their schools open in United States, even at such situation.
And we are not. Now, look, from the biggest of the organizations, several months ago, they have come out and said that it is imperative for us to restart education, which has already been badly hit. Let me ask the educationists this. It's not an easy choice to make. And I think, many would say that for a parent, there is no right answer or a, easy decision here. And neither is it going to be for any teacher. any principal, anybody who would reopen schools, because the responsibility will also come on them to keep the children safe, or the parents would at least say so. So, Professor Sharma, what should we do? What should the choice be? Wait a couple of months where we've waited for 15 months already, or start now?
Thank you very much. I must first compliment that you have taken up this topic, which is very, very crucial. Let me remind, we have 35 crore children in the schools, and we are going to increase that number. So the decision you are taking is for nearly 38, 39 crore people of this country. It's a different matter. They are not your voters, so you are less concerned about them. My concern is that government is always so worried about economic loss. You open your industries. Mrs. Sahai, we are concerned about your children. You are asking the doctors, will you take responsibility? Yes, I take responsibility of the learning loss of your children, not my children. We call them our children and we are concerned about them, and that is why we are saying, please open up the schools. My answer would be, don't take a nationwide decision. It has to be local decision. I am very happy Dr. Ram Singh, a very well-known principal of a very well-known school, is here. I respect him so much. I know about him. He will say about the school situation. Let the decision be taken by the school principal. It cannot be a national decision. It has to be micro decision depending upon each school, and the modality has to be different. We will open a school for all children. That cannot be the right decision. We'll open or call all children to school. Not the right decision. We may have different strategies. Let me mention one or two. All the teachers and the staff must be vaccinated. Only then they should be allowed to be in school. Children of parents who are vaccinated and they have to produce certificate, they only can enter, those children can enter the school. I am worried about my children. Don't just think it is learning loss. It is social loss. Your child will not be able to adjust in society. 20, 30, you will realize your child has become somebody who is not adjusting in the society. School is not only about teaching or transacting curriculum. It is about learning to live together. We have called those children who have not come to school for 15 days, we have defined them as out of school children, OOSC. What about our children, the children of the whole country? They are all out of school. Madam Sahai, you will realize when the schools reopen, children 14, 15, 16 years will not like to go to school. They have got out of the habit of going to school. Schooling is not just about transacting the curriculum. It is about learning to live together and creating a society. Why did we have inclusive schools? Because we wanted to bring all together. My take on it would be, it cannot be a national decision. The government should, national as well as state government should just give the right to the principals to decide how they will do it. I think Dr. Ram Singh ji will say in detail, those children of class 10 say, because we are going to have board exam for 10th and 12th, perhaps 25% each day, and we can work 7 days a week. I know all the teachers have done it during the pandemic and they will do it 7 days a week, staggered manner, but it is important to bring children to school. Don't forget, boys and girls need to share with their peer group at this age, 14 plus, the adolescents, and we are confining them to homes. Their loss of social adjustability is greater than the learning loss. We can do that. So what I will say is, government of India or a state government should not decide. That decision must be left to the school principal. They are best placed. They must decide, not a national decision.
Okay.
And schools
in
must
fact,
open.
Professor Sharma, to the point that you made, and thank you for explaining it, so articulately, to the point that you made. For example, in Mumbai, the SOP that has been issued, and again, the Maharashtra government took an overall decision. I'm just taking this as an example. The Maharashtra government took an overall decision to reopen schools from a certain date. Then they left it to individual districts and civic bodies to come up with, their own set of SOPs. In Mumbai, they have also left it to the school managements and the consent of parents. And I think in most states, the consent of parents is being given that kind of importance, approval of school management and consent of parents. They've also said that, for example, schools should link with the nearest primary health center. All teachers and non-teaching staff should be vaccinated. Separate entry and exit for children and staff only. Students and school staff to be allowed inside school after thermal scanning and all. And the basic precautions to be taken. But there is some amount of discretion and power being given to schools, management, and to parents. Do you think that's the right way to go forward? It can't be a blanket thing. Dr. Ram Singh, let me get your view in on that as well.
Okay, what I feel, education is the joint responsibility of the parents and the teachers and the school. So instead of being in this fear of COVID, we should come out, we should encourage our children because they have lost so much. And what Professor Sharma was telling, that that children are losing their reading habit, writing habit, their practice they are not doing, they are not writing, and they are taking the online classes. They're not having the interest in those things. They are losing their peer group, their sports periods and activities. Almost all those things, whatever required for the all-round development of the children, those things are lost. So we teachers and the parents can come together, can make coordinate together and can send the children. The schools have come out, government has also framed some guidelines, some SOPs, and whatever parents associations or parents can contribute in just upgrading those SOPs, we can do together and we can send the children to the school. Otherwise, this loss will not be compensated in future. Already, whatever the loss is there, schools are trying, teachers are trying that whenever children will come to the school, we'll try to compensate those losses. What happened, but see, no one can give the guarantee also that after 2 months everything will be all right or everything will be on the track. So this uncertainty cannot continue for a longer period, and jointly parents and teachers, we can make the place safer for the children, and we can encourage the children and we can take care of the safety of the children.
Okay, Anubha Sai wanted to come in. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, see, I wanted to say one thing that, see, ICMR guidelines are very much clear that schools should reopen only after teachers are vaccinated. When in Maharashtra, we asked the state government that how many teachers are vaccinated in Maharashtra, they don't have any data. They are not able to provide data how many teachers are vaccinated. Now the mayor of Mumbai is saying that 70% teachers are vaccinated. What about other states? What about other cities? What about Pune, Nagpur, and even small villages? What about government schools? So they don't have data that how many teachers are vaccinated. So how can we send our children to school when government is not providing data? This is a very serious concern where ICMR has clarified that schools cannot reopen until unless teachers are vaccinated. Here in Maharashtra, government is reopening school without even checking data whether teachers are vaccinated or not. They don't have any data. Education department, we are asking. They don't have any data. So how come these governments are taking such stand and reopening schools? Because we know how implementation happens in our country. Laws are made, SOPs are just on paper. They are never being followed. So this is happening in Maharashtra. I don't know about other states, but in Maharashtra, without any data, government has given permission to reopen the schools. Government schools also have been reopened in small cities and villages, and private schools are also reopening. Maybe in private schools, some private schools might have done vaccination part, but what about government schools? Government is not providing data, so how can we risk our children? And second part is transport. That is also a big concern. Most of the children commute through public transport in Mumbai and in other cities also. What parents are telling me that we don't have public transport. How are we going to send our children to school? That is also a major concern. Third point is number of children in each class. Most of the schools in Maharashtra have more than 70 to 80 children. One parent from Nagpur and also from Mumbai told me that there are around 80 to 90 children in one class. So 50% of that capacity is around 45. So that is also not, that they are violating RTE norms. That is 40:2 is the ratio. But here in most of the schools, the ratio is 80:1.
Okay, so you've raised multiple aspects, and let us get, and it's good because I think what you're saying, Anubha Sai, actually resonates and reflects what a lot of parents are also feeling, and we must address all of these concerns one by one. The second one that you raised about, following rules inside the school and number of children in each classroom, unlike maybe in the Western world, in our classroom, 70, 80, 90, three of them on each bench, that's how it works. Even if half of them come, it's still a large number. How will they travel in public transport? Is that safe? That's the other part. Okay, so on the first part, Dr. Ram Singh, can this be done? Can we ensure social distancing is maintained? It's going to be a nightmare for the teachers for sure.
See, whatever madam is suggesting or telling, those are the part of the SOPs and guidelines. Schools cannot call the children until teachers are not vaccinated. We can have the drive for the vaccination for the government teachers or private school teachers. That is the essential before calling to the children. We are agreed with that. Second part is there. We should find out the nitty-gritty to call the children. We can call even and odd, and we can call shift-wise. So until we are not sitting with the positive mindset to find out that what should be the strategies, what should be the nitty-gritty to call the children, we cannot do it. The question is there, we are not ready to talk, or we are not ready to sit together that, okay, let us start the school. And see, as my personal experience, I can share with you that we have started in the shift-wise. Per day, 2 shifts are there. And second, the children are called even and odd wise. One day they are attending the online classes, another day they are attending the offline classes. Actually, the problem is there with the schools. If the schools are coming forward, they are they are ready to take the challenges. They are going to put more efforts, or they are going to give more time to teach the children and keeping their safety in the mind. I request parents should come forward and should help and suggest something, what more we can do it. So I think whatever madam is suggesting, that those are the part of the guidelines. And wherever the transport part, there also, see, suppose children are more, somewhere parents can also help in dropping and picking up. Because see, in a week, if 3 days the children are coming to the school, it is itself going to break the monotony. It is going to break the kind of frustration and tension, whatever the children are there at home. Just imagine, every other thing is open. Where children are going in park, children are going in cinema hall and everything, every places they are going, only school they cannot go. And remember, let us remember one thing, what Sarma was repeating again and again, education is one of the industry which is affected maximum because of the COVID. So we have to bring the things on the track. For that, we should sit together and talk and find out the strategy and SOPs, and no final strategy can come out. See, that will improve, that will change with the situation. So when we are going to start and we are going to call the children, after that, the strategy and SOPs will improve day by day.
Okay, while I can understand that, the other aspect that Anubha raised was about the staff being vaccinated. And while I can understand how that becomes a big, good precaution to take, Dr. Chandrakant Leria, should that be a mandatory condition until every adult in the school is vaccinated? Don't allow children? Would that make a difference?
So the point to remember is that children are not at additional risk, and that's why school should be open. And anything done is an additional advantage. So while teachers should be vaccinated, family members should be vaccinated, but that's not the key concern. And we should not be looking at aggregate number. Of course, if the 70% of the total in a particular state are vaccinated, then those schools where those teachers are in there can be open. That's one thing. What is being missed, that if we start with the approach of finding faults and looking at the weakest link and want a guarantee in advance and all the questions to be answered before school can be opened, that's not going to work. That's not the life. It does not work in the life. But remember that children are protected and they are very different. Example of mask. Like people say, oh, children are unlikely to follow mask adherence. But what we need to remember, that Government of India, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare guidelines say that children under the age of 5 years need not to wear mask. Then the children who are in the age group of 5 to 12 years may wear mask as much as possible. So it's only the children who are older than 12 years should wear mask as like adults. So what we forget, that there is a clear difference in the different age group for COVID appropriate behavior. 5 to 12 year old may wear mask as far as possible. What it conveys essentially, that we should not panic if all of a sudden children are not wearing mask or one children drop the mask. So we need to remember the nuances, and it can be done. Another dimension I want to bring in that, okay, school transport or touching, but what we need to remember, Indian Council of Medical Research has itself said that the role of the thermal screening at the entrance of the is very limited. There is no evidence that it benefit. Similarly, over period of time, we have realized that the fomite transmission, which means touching the surfaces, does not contribute that much. 18 months ago, we were keeping a delivery or parcel outside for one day, then picking. Now we order food and pick immediately and start eating. So the surface transport is not that much of value. So we should not panic, or we should not say that children are likely to touch the book of other children and that's why they should not be coming. So we need to remember and have a mindset that the children are safe. That's why school should be open. Then we should try to make three things. One is get as much as vaccinated as possible for the teachers and other members, improve ventilation in the classroom, and the mask adherence. And final point I want to make is, and that is that we need to start on that process. Like some people who have a limited understanding but have opportunity to speak are missing the point that 90% of the parents are willing to send their children to the schools. Children in rural and urban setting are open to schools. So the approach should be, that's the final point, that parents and children should be given opportunity or choice to attend or not attend school, and then leave to the parents. If somebody do not want to send their children to the school, this is their choice, but school should be as an option open immediately.
Okay, school should be the option given, and then the parents, the schools can decide, and then the parents can of course have the final say. Let me bring in some of our viewers as well on this conversation. Dr. Tanvi Shukla is calling us from Mumbai. Good evening. What would you like to say?
Yeah, hi, good evening. First, I congratulate you on an excellent topic that you have chosen. I want to just tell our eminent doctor on the panel that as a doctor myself, we have seen pediatric COVID right from 1 year, one and a half years. We've seen mortalities in kids. And the biggest worrying factor for me is these kids will be silent carriers and transmit to their parents, their grandparents, their neighbors, and this could likely create another mini pandemic, of sorts. My daughter's in final year in KEM. They were having college. They have shut off the college because 30 students contracted COVID. So this is all fine and nice to say. We should have thermal scanning is useless. We should have PCR or rapid antigen testing in the schools. Otherwise, we are heading for disaster if it is not monitored carefully.
Okay, Dr. Shukla, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your interesting viewpoint and your, quoting from your own experiences. Let me also bring in Sandeep, who's also calling us from Mumbai. Good evening. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Good evening. Thank you for having me on the show. Hello?
Sandeep, if you can just mute the television in the background, we'll be able to hear you better.
Sorry. Yeah, did that. Can I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. I would like to bring you the ground reality. All these people who are on the show, I don't know whether they are from Mumbai. The educationist said perfectly. The president, I would like to ask the president, the parents who are calling the president, do they know the ground reality? People are going to restaurants, sitting next to next table. Are SOP followed? They know. They take the kids who are even 6 years old. They are playing in grounds, playing together. I can send you photos, any number of photos. Go to Shivaji Park any day. You will have 6 years old to 12 years old to 15 years old. Why? You don't want to send them to school, but you want to send them to the playgrounds. You're ordering food day in and day out to your home. See the number of deliveries happening in your societies. In my colony, tuitions are running from the last 1 year. Even in the second COVID wave, there were tuitions, home tuitions. I'm talking of home tuitions where in 180 area, I'm talking of one room, there are around 20 students sitting side by side. But nothing has happened. All this is allowed, but school should not start. I don't agree on this. I don't agree. Give it a try. You allow everything. You go to restaurants. You go to outdoor. You go for picnics. You go for picnics. Not only in indoor picnics. I'm saying they are traveling state-wise picnics.
Yes, okay, you make a very interesting point, Mr. Sandeep. Let me, and I was also going to, raise this issue because this does come as a very strong argument, as to those who say, why not school then? Anubha Sahai, why not school? Let's just take the example of Mumbai and Pune. How many of these families ended up in Alibag or in Lonavla, in Khandala, in this dam and that dam, camping, picnicking with their children, and traveling around. They're all in restaurants. They're all going to their relatives' places. They've all attended festivals. They've all gone out shopping. Then why is it that school still becomes a big tricky point?
See, Tanviji, we have been demanding that school should reopen since almost since January. We have been demanding that please reopen schools, but after following safety protocols. You vaccinate teachers, you vaccinate staff, and provide us data, but that data is still not available. And children are not vaccinated. As far as going to parks and other places are concerned, even that should be restricted, because if children are not vaccinated, we have seen how the cases are reporting in other countries. It may happen in India also. So we have to be careful. If parents are sending their children to malls and other places, then that is also risky. I'm not saying that parents should send their children to everywhere. If you are sending your children to school, then to any other area, if you're taking them to parks and all, you should be responsible if anything happens. And not only children, I can see in Dadar, you go to the marketplace, see how the crowd is there. In vegetable market, people are crowding like anything. Chief Minister is appealing, Chief Minister of Maharashtra is requesting people to not gather, to avoid crowded place. So it is not safe either for children or for adults also to go and attend big gatherings. We should avoid that. And that's why we have been demanding that please vaccinate teachers and other staff, so that there should be some, so that safety should be there. But that is not happening. We cannot see. And even children are not vaccinated. In Maharashtra, they have not reopened the colleges, whereas the vaccine is available for 18 plus, but they are reopening schools. So that's what we are demanding. Please provide vaccine for children also. Why we have not yet started vaccination drive in India for small children? So going to malls and other places is also very risky. If you can ask any doctors in our panel whether the children or any person, adult, should be allowed to, should go to all these crowded places or not. No. Even PM and our Chief Minister are appealing that please avoid going to crowded places. That may turn into another super spreader. We have seen what has happened in our country in second wave.
Yes, but people are not stopping, Anubha Sai, people are not stopping that. People are only asking questions on schools. Nobody is stopping their own children from playing in the park. Please look anywhere. Children are out there playing in the park from morning to evening now, because the school timings, on-screen timings are also restricted, so there is nothing more to do. And obviously no parent would want to completely shut them out for 18 months with absolutely no social interaction. Social interaction, peer interaction is a very important part as well, and that is already also happening. Dr. Asmita Mahajan wanted to also make a point. Yes, go ahead please.
Yes. So till now we just spoke about how children were affected during the past, okay, during the first and second waves. That is all I commented. As a parent and pediatrician in Mumbai, I'm in a very unique situation. I would say this is a very difficult decision. This debate about the school reopening is very important, and the decision is very difficult because there is no black and white answer, I would say. Of course, the pandemic has gone on for a long time. We all know that most of the viruses mutate, as the infection goes on spreading, the virus mutates. As it mutates, it is usually seen that the infectivity increases, but the severity of the disease goes on decreasing. We are expecting and postulating that in the future, maybe, COVID virus may be just as common as a common cold, and hopefully, there will be just mild infections, which we will not pay attention to also. Like a common cold, it will just come and go, and nobody will be affected. But as a doctor, I would like to say here that every life is precious. Like somebody just mentioned, children will be children because they will probably not follow all the precautions in the school. Secondly, most of the children will be with their grandparents or other adults or elderly people at home. So there will be a chance of clusters of cases or the number of cases rising, definitely. As a doctor, I would also like to a point over here of online schooling not being the very ideal, method of schooling. There are lots of psychological effects seen on children. I have seen children undergoing that, and I've given lectures on how to deal with that also. As a parent also, even I see the behavior. The schools are doing a tremendous job already, I would say, by the online teaching thing. Whether hybrid mode means the online come physical school can be balanced well. There are lots of logistical difficulties. The sanitization of the classrooms, the odd even attending of classes. There'll be a lot of issues. Other point I would like to make is that whether the vaccination of the staff and the parents. We all know in this panel, and the viewers also will agree, that only vaccination will not be the answer, because being fully vaccinated, still you can get infected, right? There will be still that chance. So the cluster of cases may increase, even though, the annual day or the gatherings and assemblies are avoided in the school, still the cases might increase. And as a doctor, as a pediatrician, as a parent, I would say that still the risk of the schools reopening has to be somehow balanced against the side effects or effects of online schooling continuing for a particular period of time. So, right, like I said, I wouldn't say it's a very easy decision, but all the eminent panelists over here are making very valid points, okay? Because maybe it should be a local decision. Each and every school, along with the parents of that school, can take decisions accordingly, and the decisions can be taken.
Okay, let me now bring in our educationists on this aspect as well. And because Dr. Mahajan raised the aspect of on-screen, impact of on-screen education, how much of screen time, it brought me to the point, Dr. Ram Singh, to you this first. How are we going to manage if parents choose both options? If some parents say, I'm sending my child to school, and other parents say, I'm not going to. Now, are the teachers going to be able to teach online and offline? Will it be combined? Will they have to do 2 separate sessions? Will that become a challenge for all of you?
Okay, certainly it is a challenge. Exclusively offline classes or online classes, both are, we are talking that hybrid mode it should start. And certainly it is difficult for the teachers, but we are trying to come up to the expectation of the parents and the children. And those children who are only online mode, certainly they are going to be losers. Some practical classes, some practices they are missing out, like psychological problems are there, counseling is required. The school is going to have individual class counselor, those who are going to talk to the children. Children are losing the interest in practice. Whatever teachers are teaching, they are not doing at home. They are not getting the assignment to be done. There is no provision for checking for those assignments and homework, what the children are doing. There is no provision for correction of the copies also. So problem is there. I think what the parents are having the fear and concern, what we too have the same. I think after this festive season, DP and Diwali, the parents will understand, they will gain the confidence once they will start sending the children, and then they will gain the confidence to send the children. And please remember, online teaching is not sufficient. It is only for completing the syllabus, only for the curriculum. For other things, for counseling, for career, for habits, manners, personality, communication, and quizzes and all those things, we need the children in the school. So for time being, if parents are ready to send the children, then we are going to compensate whatever loss we had in past 1.5 years. But doing both, it can be the time being solution. It is not the permanent solution.
Okay, not a permanent solution. That can only be a solution in the time being. Professor Sharma wanted to come in as well. Go ahead, please.
I want to make very quick 3 points. First is, we are taking for granted that every child is connected, and we are able to teach every child through digital mode. Don't forget, at least 30% of children are not digitally connected. What are we doing about them? So for them, it is important that we reopen school. I think all of us on the panel and those who responded are of the view that learning should start. And learning is not just transacting curriculum. We have to think about parents who cannot afford gadgets, who cannot afford to be online. Third very important thing is that don't forget your child is getting digitally ill. The fatigue of digital connectivity is massive, and that will not have a short-term impact, it will have long-term impact. We have studied this for last 30 years, and that is why even in distance education, we do not prescribe 100% digital online. We do it through textbooks, self-instructional material. I believe as an expert of distance education and blended learning, we have done this research for 30 years. Digital education is not the answer. When we say open education, digital education, we don't mean only digitally connected. And you are doing it to 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old. I wanted to come in again to just remind that don't forget our children are in your hands and they are ill. We are concerned about them, and that is why we educationists are shouting today, 2030, you will come to us and say, you didn't care for our children because you were illiterate. No, we understand the implications of it, and that is why we are reminding again and again. Let me take a case study. 31st December, the government of India had declared we will hold board exams in May. And I had on your television channel said, please vaccinate the teachers first. See, when it comes to economic affairs, we are very prompt. But I'm sad about it when it comes to the welfare of my children, my students, my learners. Nobody is very serious. Everybody just says, close the school, let the children be at home. We understand the loss. We understand how they are ill. आपको केवल वो लोग दिखते हैं जो कोरोना से बीमार होकर हॉस्पिटल में आ रहे हैं, हमारे बच्चे घरों में बीमार हैं, उनको दवा आप नहीं जानते हैं कि क्या दवा उनको देनी है, हम जानते हैं, हमारी चिंता इसीलिए है, and that is what I am saying. First, the children of the poor and those who are not well off to have digital connectivity. Second, those who are in remote areas, we need to open school, and also for those who are in urban cities. Very well said. When it comes to going for picnic to Shimla, everybody is ready, but not ready to send the child to school. We'll take care of your child. I can assure on behalf of all school principals and teachers, we will take care of your child. Send your child to school.
Okay, but here you very well said, and I hope that actually does allay some of the concerns of people who are watching this show. But one other point that was raised, Dr. Leheria, was to say, well, children can become the carriers. You know, even if you say that they're going to be able to fight this, they can become the carriers who then spread it to the rest of the family, to elders in the family. What would you say to that?
I think that is one of the genuine concerns which can result in infection in the family member. But we need to separate this in two parts. One is that there would be many families, and especially in urban setting, there are nuclear families where all the family members have already been vaccinated. And with the vaccination coverage of adult being 70% receiving at least one shot, there would be many families which would qualify that they can send their children to the school without any additional risk. So let's start the schools for those families. That's one. Second thing is that vaccination alone is not the answer. We know India is in a very different setting. For example, a state like Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan had found seropositivity of 80%, which essentially means 80% of population had already been exposed and now protected. They should still get vaccinated. But my point is that the risk in those settings is very low. And that's why the number of...
Even the seroprevalence for children in many of the states is quite high, despite the fact that the schools have been closed.
So that's the point. So I would summarize that there are a number of families where if we start looking at that, both parents and all family members are vaccinated, they can send their children to the school. And there would be many other who have no such high-risk member, they can send their children to school. So only those families who have unvaccinated, high-risk adult cannot send the children to the school, or a child who himself is high-risk child or pre-existing conditions. So those children should not be sent to the school. So nobody is saying that 100% of children need to go to the school. We can easily identify which children can go to school. So let's open schools for those family where there is no one at the additional risk. But why say that school should not be open? That is the wrong thing. If I say that everybody should go to the school, that is the wrong thing. Open the schools for the parents who can send their children to school. Open the schools for children who want to study in the school and have no options. And for remaining, let's wait and let them allow to wait. And for the parents who do not want to send, even if everybody is vaccinated, their child is not risk, let's not pressurize them, but open school for giving an option to the parents and children.
Okay, let's get in one more view in from our viewers. Abhijit on the phone line calling us from Pune. Good evening. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Good evening, Tanvi. I mean, the last panelist more or less said what I wanted to echo. I have a few questions for the learned panelists. First of all, where have they said that if you are vaccinated, you will not be a carrier? They have said that vaccination cuts down hospitalization risk, vaccination cuts down on severe COVID risk, but you are a carrier, right, if I'm not mistaken. Number two, children in any school, you please send your camera team. Can they really offer 6 feet distance in the corridor or in the classroom or where they're having lunch? That's another question. But having said that, yeah, it's a very difficult question to answer, like the panelist said. So why not have a balanced approach? Give those, it's from the school's perspective and from the children's perspective. Some children are very well engaged, like my child, in online education. Some schools, like her school, is doing very well in online education. Can they continue? Yes, please let them continue with the online education. Some children may have attention deficit, attention problem. They may not be concentrating enough, or even the schools. Or, I mean, if you're talking about whole of India, not just the cities,
right,
then you have midday meal and etc. So please let them go to school, and like the last panelist said, please have a hybrid model.
Yes,
so
in a lot of cases, for example, right, like you also rightly said, Abhijit, where parents actually are also finding it difficult if both are working, they can't afford to put their child, with any other kind of support system, what to do with the child when the school is closed. We have to understand that not everybody comes from the same urban setup where, you can manage 3 rooms for 3 family members, everybody working separately, studying separately, you have all the gadgets, all the internet connections and everything else, accessible for you. So, yes, the choice should be there. And then the parents can decide. I think everybody at least agrees on that part. Very quickly, Mithi Somesh on the phone line from Coorg in Karnataka. Good evening. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening to all the panelists.
Yes, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I think it's just repeating the same point you just told now, a hybrid system. I think the parents should be given this option. And the people who are interested to continue with online classes, carry on with it. And who's interested to go for the offline classes. But I think a majority of them are comfortable with the online classes which are going on. So I think as of now, you should have option for both. Leave the option for the parents to decide. And then through the mass people, you will get to know what is the final call.
I think there also is, Ms. Mithi Somesh, and, to all of our panelists and viewers as well, a concern that stems from the fact that the parent will not have the control. When you step out, if you take them for festivals, if you take them for gatherings with your relatives and family functions, even for vacations, in the flight or to a touristy place, you somehow feel that you have control and you are keeping an eye on your child. Maybe that's where a lot of parents are struggling to say, okay, when they're out of my sight and in school and somebody else is supposed to tell them during lunch break and during sports hour to follow all the rules, will that happen or not? Will they take care or not? And there somewhere parents will have to find that faith. But if you find the faith to send your child to the park downstairs to play, maybe you will have to find that faith to send them to the school as well, where the teachers and the principal will also take care of them, as our educationists were saying. Completely out of time. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for joining us. I hope it was helpful with the academicians and medical experts also here trying to allay all of your concerns, and we hope children are actually able to get back to some kind of normalcy. They've had it really tough in the last 18 months, the toughest of all actually. While it may seem they've taken up easily to on-screen time and adapting to various gadgets to figure out their entertainment and education, it does impact them. And the sooner they can get out and have more and more human interaction with their peers and their teachers, the better it will be for them. Thank you so much for joining us.